afternoon, everybody. Welcome back here to the Company of Makers YouTube channel, where today we get ready for the final event of the Armed Forces Racing League, where we get ready to crown our champion of this season. Of course, earlier on, about 4 hours ago, we was here for our 7th round of the league, where of course we headed off to Silverstone, where we saw Ben Cooper lead Harry Phoenix and then lead Thomas Story for the podium. And of course we now head off to Abu Dhabi, a perfect track to end off any championship fight, and I'm sure we're going to have a great battle here. Of course, whoever wins this race is crowned the champion, so it's pretty much all go for it pretty much in this one. Of course, we have Ben Cooper in qualifying at the moment, heading down towards turn 5, so we got started very quickly here with qualifying. And while this lap goes on, quick thing to everybody who might not know what Company of Makers are: we're a social enterprise, a social initiative which helps bring veterans, serving personnel and reservists from the armed forces together. And of course we're here as part of the Get in the Game project, which brings all of these guys together through the power of gaming. And of course we're here live at the Williams Esports Lounge for the LAN final here of this championship. So if we go back to the racing, of course we can see lots of chopping and changing in the qualifying order, and it's James Cartwright currently who sits quickest, but of course Ben Cooper, who went from 18th to 1st in that Silverstone race, is certainly going to be eyeing up another pole position. Of course he took one in the initial session that we had, but then unfortunately we had to restart the lobby, so we had to go all over again. But Harry Phoenix looks strong again as we head through the final corner. Who will take pole around Abu Dhabi? It will be Harry Phoenix, 2 in 2, and it's Thomas Story again sitting in 2nd place, so it's the exact same front row as what we had earlier on. And then James Cartwright, I'm sure he was up in 3rd as well earlier, with Ben Cooper, a much better performance, sitting in 4th. He's over 2/10 back from that pole time. A very close session there indeed, with Cole Nelson rounding off the top 5. Then we had Adam Hamilton Cooper, Tom Packham, Oliver Carpenter, Luke Barnhurst, a big improvement from him, ahead of Craig Bridge in the top 10. Then we had Michael Bentley, Robert Pryor, Gary Wilson, Tommy Dolly and Morgan Stubbs at the top 15. And our final 4, we had James Smith, Edward George Fleming, Aidan Philpott and John Quirk. And of course, for Aidan and John, they will not be happy with that, because both of those guys finished up in the top 10 earlier on. So they've got a lot of work to do as we head our way into the race. And we normally have a quick couple of minutes where everybody gets themselves sorted out. We get ourselves loaded in. They can change their setup strategy and all of those fancy bits which I don't have a clue about. And then of course we'll get into the actual racing, and I believe it's a 50% race here around Abu Dhabi, so a very long, compared to what they had in Silverstone, it's a bit of an endurance race in that sense. It's double what they had earlier on in race distance, and of course strategy becomes more key than it ever did before. So it'd be interesting to see what the drivers can manage to do before we get our way underway. And of course you might be thinking, well, how have they got to Abu Dhabi? How have they done over the season? Well, we had some time trials, and then we had the 6-race calendar. We had then the LAN finals, Silverstone, and now here at Abu Dhabi. Of course we went to Suzuka, Zandvoort, Kota, Imola, Spa and the Hungaroring to open things off. They tallied all their points, wins, seconds, etc. And then of course a certain selection got moved into that grand final. And of course that being today held at Silverstone and now held at Abu Dhabi. So no matter where you are in the standings currently, it doesn't matter. If you win the race and you're 20th in the standings, you've won the championship. It's very, very harsh here. As we get ready now for the final race of the afternoon, it's 5 lights and the cars head away down towards turn 1. A brilliant start as somebody spins off the line. I think that was James Smith at the back of the field. But a very good start as Harry Phoenix there goes wide out of turn 1, and that gives Thomas Story a chance as they make their way down towards turn number 5. Of course, James Cartwright, Cole Nelson sitting there, as well as Ben Cooper got involved in something on that initial start as he dropped down to P6 behind the back of Tom Packham. Because of course we do have a 29-lap race here around Abu Dhabi. So it's a 50% race of what we would normally have for a Formula 1 Grand Prix. As James Cartwright looking to bounce ahead of Thomas Story. Up the inside goes Cartwright, and can he get the move complete? Because Story's fighting back at him into the exit of turn 7. But no, Cartwright keeps that one, and into P2 he goes. And Ben Cooper has dropped down to 9th place. I think he dropped down even lower than that for a moment. but I think he's managed to get himself back underway. And a very chaotic start for him. Of course, lost an initial few places off the line and then lost even more, as we do see James Cartwright there looking to get ahead of Harry Phoenix momentarily. That was up in towards turn 9, and Cartwright still sits there in second at the moment. Of course, we'll get DRS as we head onto lap 2, and that will help him over the next few laps and try and take that lead away from Harry Phoenix, as Aidan Philpott jumps up to 15th ahead of, I think it was John Quirk and Tommy Dolly, who Tommy Dolly drops down to 19th now, so he must have made a mistake somewhere, and that is not ideal for him, considering he's now 5 seconds back from Michael Bentley in 17th, as he is Carl Nelson in P4 currently. A nice, decent start for him on that opening lap, as Robert Pryor goes off the track at turn 1. And of course, with the speed that you have to carry through this first corner at Abu Dhabi, with the way that the corner's designed, with it pretty much being a 90-degree left-hander, it's very easy to run off the road or hit that curb on the inside and ruin your lap. As somebody spun around at turn 5, I think that is Robert Pryor again with a mistake. And we did see for a moment his car facing the wrong way at the apex of turn 5. And he will resume down in 18th place. He'll be under pressure from Dolly for 18th, but of course we'll see how that one plays out. And then focusing up front, this could get interesting here, because Thomas Story's got back ahead of James Cartwright, and Neely has lost that 1 second to Harry Phoenix. And after having a very good lead in Silverstone until Ben Cooper arrived on the scene, I mean, he could have easily won that race in Silverstone, but of course Cooper was unstoppable. And with Cooper stuck in 6th, and with quite a big gap actually back to Harry Phoenix, there's certainly a chance that Phoenix could take this one and try and do what he tried to do last time out at Silverstone. As we head our way through the final corner once again, and top 4 are all within that DRS. Of course, Tom Packham is 2 seconds back. He has Ben Cooper and Craig Bridge for company. Of course, Oliver Carpenter just behind those guys, with Adam Hamilton Cooper, who recovered to 5th earlier on. He's 9th ahead of Edward George Fleming, who's had another really good start. Last time out in Silverstone, he also started at the back with Ben Cooper, and he got up into the top 10 quickly. He's done that again. Brilliant job by Edward George Fleming. It just seems that qualifying is not his forte. As we head back down towards turn 6 here, as Thomas Story takes the lead of the race ahead of Harry Phoenix, and because of that DRS and because they wanted to swap and get a gap as high as they can ahead of James Cartwright, there's certainly no fight there with Harry Phoenix. He just lets Thomas Story through, and he carries on for another day. And Ben Cooper does get finally back ahead of Tom Packham. He jumps up into 5th. He's got a 2-second gap to Carl Nelson, and then of course he's then got to bring that gap down to James Cartwright, as Nelson has lost that DRS, as Cooper there going a tad wide and losing a couple of tenths of a second. I'm sure he'll recuperate that over sector 3. As we see further back as well, Adam Hamilton Cooper making a move. He goes ahead of Oliver Carpenter and jumps back up into the top 8. So he's starting to recover after a decent qualifying a few minutes ago. And as we now head on to lap 4 of 29, the top 2 have changed, but I'm sure because of that DRS, that will change pretty much every lap, or at least every couple of laps, until they make their pit stops. And I think most drivers are on a medium tyre, so that tells me they'll go for a medium hard. Of course, some tracks on this game you have to go for a 2-stop, but I'm sure with the tyre compounds here you can manage a 1-stop strategy. So medium hard or hard medium probably is the way to go for these drivers. Of course, if you make a mistake or maybe you want to try something different, you can always go for a different strategy. As Gary Wilson goes up into the top 10, he makes a move ahead of Edward George Fleming. Very good start for him as well. Gary was 15th, I think, after qualifying there, so he's also a driver making some very good moves on the initial start of the race. As top 3 still together. Of course, Carl Nelson dropping that pace off a little bit more than he did earlier on, as Harry Phoenix around the outside into turn 9 looks to take the lead. It'll be side by side with him and Story as they head out of turn 10. And is Thomas Story going to go for a move? Of course he is, into turn 12 up the inside of Harry Phoenix, and Story takes that lead back. So when I said earlier they won't fight with each other because they want to pull away, scrap that, because they're having an insane battle around the Yas Marina circuit. And of course that's probably helped James Cartwright get back within a second of these two. So a brilliant battle there. And Thomas Story, of course, lost that position, got it back, and now we'll have to try and recoup it again down towards turn 6. That seems to be quite a hot spot here in Abu Dhabi. Turn 6 and then turn 9. As we see Ben Cooper as well, he's looking to still try and find his way ahead of Carl Nelson. Because of his pace and how quickly he's caught up, I'm sure this should be a move easily made down towards turn 6 for Ben Cooper. As I don't know if one was late or if one was early on the brakes, but Ben Cooper, however, does go ahead of Carl Nelson. I think Carl might have been a bit hesitant on the brakes, and of course Ben Cooper unfortunately slammed into the back of him. So Cooper will move up into 4th, and I'm not sure about Carl Nelson will be too happy with that. But from the racing we've seen so far, I also think Ben Cooper won't be too happy that he's caused that little incident. But things happen and they have to continue on, and of course because of that, Ben Cooper's lost an extra 1.5 seconds to James Cartwright, so he's got a lot of work to do. As here is Adam Hamilton Cooper up into P7 now ahead of Craig Bridge. Still making those moves is Hamilton Cooper. As I think further back as well we see some moves happening. It's John Quirk and Michael Bentley getting ahead of Edward George Fleming. They're still going at it there for 12th place, as Michael Bentley looking to go into 12th. He was down in 18th earlier on, so he's had a good recovery in this race, already up by an extra 5 places. As we can see there, Oliver Carpenter all over the rear of Craig Bridge. I think Craig there might have went a bit too deep into turn 14, and of course that cost him some time, but they continue on with Craig Bridge still ahead of Oliver Carpenter, as Edward George Fleming takes a 3-second time penalty for multiple track limit violations, and Adam Philpott drops down to 16th place as he goes into the pit lane, so I'm sure he'll probably drop to the back of the field there. So a very early stop for Aidan Philpott, and that tells me it'll most likely be a 2-stop race for him. As we look back up here with Craig Bridge on the back of Hamilton Cooper, he might not have a run down towards turn 6, but if he can keep an eye on his exit of the chicane, he could have a move down towards turn 9. Anyway, he's going to go for a move. Oh dear me, that was close indeed. They both go deep into the chicane. I think they both scared each other there on the brakes. There's Craig Bridge as well losing the car on the exit of turn 7, and that's certainly costing him some time, and certainly puts him under pressure here from Oliver Carpenter. As here's Tom Packham on the back of Carl Nelson. He's now looking to try and make some moves, of course. Did get up into P5 earlier. Ben Cooper made a move, and then Carl Nelson is next on his list. So we'll see what Tom can do here as they head through the final sector. Tom had a decent race around Silverstone earlier on, and I'm sure he's just going to look to continue on from that. He probably knows he's not really got much of a chance of winning, but he's still got a chance of getting a decent result here in this one. As we head back down towards turn 1, and you can see Nelson saving the battery in that opening straight. Of course, you know you're never going to come under pressure there, so you might as well try and save some battery. And then looking further ahead as well, James Cartwright just still flirting around with that 1 second gap to Harry Phoenix, as here goes Tom Packham. I think he's going to hold back for DRS. He sends it into turn 5. That was deep indeed. And let's see who got the DRS. Was it Packham or was it Carl Nelson? And I think it was Tom Packham. Very well played there as he goes into 5th and does receive DRS as they head down towards turn 6. And actually Nelson's going to try and fight back as they head into the chicane. Nelson's gone back ahead there. Packham's got the inside line. They make a slight bit of contact and they rejoin together. But who's going to be with the DRS this time? I'm sure it'll be Carl Nelson. It is, who goes back ahead of Tom Packham. A brilliant move by Carl Nelson, and there's still a brilliant battle between these two for position. And of course, because of all this battling, they've lost over 2 seconds to Ben Cooper, so their battle of the top 4 is probably out of the window. As John Quirk there goes ahead of Robert Pryor, that's for 12th place, so he's making his way up the field nicely. And then also further ahead, Thomas Story still has that lead over Harry Phoenix. That got taken around 4 laps ago. Phoenix, I think, is realising it might not be worth battling too hard here with Thomas Story, so it could just be the case of sitting behind with that DRS and hoping that James Cartwright doesn't bring that gap down again. Of course, that's currently sat at 1.6 seconds, so there's no DRS advantage for James Cartwright, and there is for Harry Phoenix, and of course that can gain you easily 2 or 3 tenths on a straight to the car behind. It was 1.6 on the exit. We'll see what that gap is to James Cartwright by the time we get to turn 6, and it's 1.92 seconds. So 4/10 there was gained by Harry Phoenix due to that DRS. It just shows how crucial it is to stick with the DRS. It's every opportunity that you can. And of course, it just helps the top two pull away very nicely. Their gap now down to Ben Cooper. I think he's the realistic target for these guys. That's 4.7 seconds. So Cooper's got to get past Cartwright as soon as he can and use that free air just to try and bring that gap down, put in some consistent laps. As deep, I think they're on the brakes initially for Storey, but still retains that lead. And here once again is Tom Packham on the back of Cole Nelson. Further back, Luke Barnhurst was looking for a move on Tommy Dolly, but he just couldn't quite pull that one off. He was side by side, but not close enough to go up into 13th place. As we'll see what Packham can do. That gap though has increased ever so slightly over this final sector. And of course he just needs to stick within a second. He gets a short dose down to turn 1 here. And then of course your main DRS is down towards turn 6 and down towards turn number 9. So we'll have to see what Packham can do there. But of course, with the way the dirty air works and the slipstream on this F125 game, it's not that easy to make moves. You don't gain that much time from the slipstream, so you've already got to be about 4/10 back on both straights, really, if you want to have much of a chance of going for an overtake. Unless you've saved up all your battery and you burn it all down that one DRS straight. There's still Storey and Phoenix lead, Cartwright 3rd, Ben Cooper 4th. And the top 4 could be quite comfortable here as Cole Nelson 6 seconds back, and here goes Harry Phoenix, goes back into the lead. Last 9 of 29, he retakes the lead ahead of Thomas Storey. And then looking further back as well, Tom Packham was all over the rear too of Cole Nelson, but he couldn't quite go up into P5. But yes, as I was saying, that gap back to Cole Nelson is 8 seconds from Ben Cooper. So the top 4 very comfortable where they are at the moment. And I suppose I haven't really got to take too many risks, you know, if they want to keep that top 4 really. At least 3 of them are guaranteed a podium here. Is here we're on board with Packham through turn 14, looking to make a move. It's closing in, but it could be enough through here. Of course, you can never make an overtake through this section, as very early in goes Carl Nelson. And he also picks up a 3-second time penalty there. I didn't see where he went off track, but he must have done. So a 3-second time penalty gets given out to Carl Nelson on his entrance to the pit lane. Oliver Carpenter, Craig Bridge, Gary Wilson, Michael Bentley, Tommy Dolly, John Quirk are all in now. So many drivers heading in on this lap. Lap 10 of 29 as Storey retakes the lead from Harry Phoenix. And that's a crucial move. If they're looking to pit now, you want to be that leading car heading into the pit lane. So this could be very crucial now for Thomas Storey as we head our way back down towards turn number 9. DRS is enabled here for Phoenix, but I don't think it will be enough to make a move. No, it won't be. And of course, we saw earlier on how OP, pretty much you can say, Ben Cooper's pace was. And because of these two have been in DRS and he hasn't, he's not gained any time over the past 5 laps. He's probably lost a couple of tenths actually to the leaders, and that just shows how crucial keeping that DRS is for the top 2. As Packham does go ahead of Adam Hamilton Cooper. He's actually battling with Adam Hamilton Cooper, who I think is looking to go back into 5th. As here's Carl Nelson going ahead of Aidan Philpott. That's into P9 for him. Of course, he made his pit stop earlier on as James Cartwright is into the pit lane. From 3rd, he goes in. And of course, Ben Cooper now re-inherits that P3 spot. Of course, he had that for a long time at Silverstone. As Hamilton Cooper also goes in. That's his first stop of this race, and we'll be keen to see where they come out to the likes of Cole Nelson, who was around them in that, well, at least Cole Nelson was close to Adam Hamilton Cooper. He wasn't that close to James Cartwright, however, so it will be key to see where Nelson comes out compared to these guys. As here we go for the lead again. Phoenix on the outside into turn 6. Looks to make the move, and he does make that move complete. Brilliant there by Harry Phoenix to overtake Thomas Storey. Let's see where Hamilton Cooper comes out. It will be close here with Morgan Stubbs on the exit of turn 1, 2 and 3. And I think he's just about got ahead. Perfecto timing there for Adam Hamilton Cooper, because just behind Stubbs is also Oliver Carpenter. So very nice work there by Adam Hamilton Cooper. As here's Thomas Story again. We'll be keen to see when these two enter into the pit lane, because of course for other drivers they're battling for a top 10 place, they might be battling in just to fit in the top 5. But these two are two of the main protagonists in fighting for that championship and taking that championship victory. And in goes Phoenix, and Thomas Story does the opposite, and we see that a lot in Formula 1. When one team or one driver does something, the other does the exact opposite. So Thomas Story probably will spend another lap out there on those medium tyres. Of course, it means he'll be slower than Phoenix and Cooper now, but once at the end of the race, he's going to have probably a better tyres by a couple of percent. I think it's about 3 or 4% tyre wear around here, so he's going to definitely be rewarded at the end of this race. As we do see as well, Luke Barnhurst in with Ben Cooper. We'll see where he comes out compared to Carl Nelson. It should be quite a big gap, I'd imagine, here between these two as they head into turn 1. Where is Cooper compared to Nelson? He's just exited now, so it will be about 3 seconds between those two. So a well executed pit stop for Ben Cooper, but of course he's got to challenge James Cartwright, who went in a lap earlier, and that overcut has worked miraculously for him because he's brought out another 1.5 seconds on Ben Cooper. So it looks easy in Silverstone for Ben. He took to the pole, he got retracted, then he went from 18th to 1st. He looked very strong, and now it seems he could be in a spot of bother, as he's going to be net P4 once Tom Packham enters the pit lane. And of course that also depends where Thomas Story comes out. As here is Aidan Philpott on the back of Adam Hamilton Cooper. These two came very close on the exit to the pit lane, and Philpott gets the move complete and into P8 for him. As Thomas Story now does enter the pits from the leading spot. He was battling with Harry Phoenix, so very keen now to see where he comes out compared to Phoenix and Cartwright. As off the track there for Robert Pryor. And considering I'm sure he was a car spun around at turn 5. He's now P7, so he's had a very good recovery. As here is Harry Phoenix on the outside of turn 1, trying to go ahead of Tom Packham. He goes off the track. He'll have to rejoin side by side. Will he get ahead? He will get ahead, and that was certainly a scary moment for Harry Phoenix as Packham goes back ahead. Tom Packham lets Harry Phoenix through. James Cartwright's on the scene, so is Thomas Story as they head into turn 5. We'll see where everybody piles out. Story takes the lead out of the pit lane. Packham into 2nd, Cartwright 3rd, and Harry Phoenix after going wide out of turn 1, letting Packham have the position back. I think he must have got an illegal overtake. He now drops down to 4th place, but he's on the attack again. As we see Cartwright looking to hold off from Phoenix. Phoenix goes back into 3rd. Packham will drop down to 4th, and it all calms down momentarily. So Story leads ahead of Cartwright and Phoenix, and that has really helped Ben Cooper. That gap has came down by 1 second now, as that was an ambitious move to the inside, but it was not a move that could be made. As here is Adam Hamilton Cooper. He goes ahead of Robert Pryor. He moves up into 7th place. A very good move from him. And further back as well, Oliver Carpenter looking to go ahead of Aidan Philpott, and he does go ahead of Aidan Philpott. Some brilliant battles here around Abu Dhabi. A track that I said earlier on wouldn't be the best when it comes to overtaking. Never mind, it has certainly proved me wrong. As we see Robert Pryor down to 12th place as Gary Wilson goes ahead, and so does Craig Bridge. As Tom Packham, after causing a little bit of carnage and packing the field up, he goes into the pits and will commit to his one-stop strategy. As Edward George Fleming, another 3-second time penalty. Penalties haven't been nice to Edward today, that is safe to say. So of course the key thing now is, where does Packham come out? Because he was up in P7 earlier on. He's going to drop down to P11. He might even drop down below that, depending on what the gap is to Edward George Fleming. So he'll come out 11th, I think, here. Yes, he is. He'll come out 11th. So he's got, to where he was earlier, 7th place, about 6 seconds to make up here. But he has got very, very new tyres compared to the others. As here, well, ahead of us is Carl Nelson and Adam Hamilton Cooper battling for 5th. As we was just on board there with Aidan Philpott on the back of Oliver Carpenter. And then Tommy Dolly goes ahead of Edward George Fleming, and Robert Pryor goes ahead of James Smith. And here, once again, is Carl Nelson, that's battling everywhere we look here around Abu Dhabi. And Nelson gets the move complete. I think Hamilton Cooper's just looking to stay with him and potentially go for a launch in towards turn 12, but I think, yes, he just lost out a bit there. So there'll be no move being made for him as we head through towards turns 13 and 14. And then they'll make their way towards 15 and 16, the final two corners on this circuit. And they'll begin their next lap of racing. So we'll be on to lap 15 out of 29 around Abu Dhabi. A brilliant race so far, and I'm sure that battle for the lead is not over at all, with Story keeping Cartwright behind, and Phoenix, I think, after, well, probably still a little bit shaken up and nervous after what happened earlier on in that first sector. He's just dropped that pace off a slight bit to James Cartwright, so he's going to have to try and bring that gap down and get ahead of Cartwright if he can. I think, no offence to Cartwright, it seems clear that Thomas Story has a little bit more pace to give in his car, as Cartwright there went deep, and this gives a big opportunity now to Harry Phoenix to go into second place. He's going to have to dart to the outside. I think for a moment he was quite unsure which way to go, but he had to make a late move to the outside line, and he does take that P2 spot. So once again, it's Story versus Phoenix for the lead of the race, as we are now over halfway through this Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. 14 laps to go in this one, as here's Adam Hamilton Cooper again, looking to go towards P5 to get ahead of Carl Nelson. He pops his way into the third sector, and of course here you can pretty much eat all the curves. Turn 14 you have to be slightly careful with, because it can sometimes send the car a little bit off balance, but most of the curves through sector 3 you can just hold the car over them and they just seem to comply. So we head our way back down towards turn 1, and Thomas Story, I think, has been given a bit of a lifeline there, as he's just about kept Harry Phoenix out of the 1 second back gap. So no DRS there for Phoenix, and there's, well, no time loss there for Thomas Story. Just looking for battles, we see Morgan Stubbs ahead of James Smith. He's made the move into 17th. We've got Gary Wilson and Tom Packham for 10th. We've got Philpott and Carpenter for 7th. So still many little battles going on around the field, as Packham has got the move complete and now jumps up into P10. And Philpott looking to go ahead of Oliver Carpenter and jump up into P7. We head down towards turn 6 and gone for a bit of a deep line into there. I mean, I wouldn't say it's lost them initially, but it does lose them a lot on the exits, and does help there Oliver Carpenter keep ahead in P7. Unless it's a burn from the back, a dive to the inside for Philpott. He does dive to the inside. He's going to have to be very careful on entry in case he's taken a bit too much power in, and he has a bit of a slide on the exit, but he does recover that one. And into P7 it goes Aidan Philpott. A good recovery in this race compared to where he started, down a few positions. As we head our way now through turn 13 and 14 here with Packham. Looking to go ahead now with Craig Bridge. Wasn't that long ago he made a move ahead of Gary Wilson. And Packham now up the inside into the final corner. It's not often we say that. As we head back down towards turn 1, inside for Packham. Does he go into P9? He certainly does. Craig Bridge has nothing to fight with there. So into P9. Oh, that's contact, and that's, I think, Tom Packham round. No, it's Craig Bridge. Craig Bridge was looking for the move again into turn 3. I don't think Packham saw him coming, or either that, or Craig Bridge got a bit of understeer, hits the side pod of Packham and goes spinning round at turn 3. That is not ideal at all for Craig Bridge, who is having a very good recovery, sitting in the top 10. There's now Adam Hamilton Cooper on the back of Carl Nelson for 5th. Looking to make a move down towards turn 9. He's got a brilliant run here as Hamilton Cooper. His best run so far. And he goes up into P5. A brilliant move. Oh, I think he gets tapped a bit there by Nelson. And you saw his hand there go up in the air, and that basically says you've hit me. There's been a bit of contact. Luke Barnhurst up ahead of Tommy Dolly. That's 12th now for him in this race. As deep there from Nelson. That's lost him 7/10 of a second there pretty much. He was 2/10 back. It's now just over a second, so that has really not helped Carl Nelson in this race. As we see there, I think somebody heading into the pit lane Yes, Cole Nelson goes in, so maybe the two-stop strategy has been initiated. It'd be great to see the tyres here for these drivers and see what sort of tyres are on at the moment. So we've got a mix of hards and mediums here. So those that have gone on to mediums, I don't know if they won't go to the end. So Hamilton Cooper, Carpenter, Wilson, they won't go to the end, but I'm sure those who have gone on to a hard could do. So the top four should be safe to the end here, unless things have changed since I last raced around Abu Dhabi. There's John Quirk, goes up into P11 now, makes a move ahead of Cole Nelson. And then Morgan Stubbs as well up into 16th. Down through in towards turn 9. Cooper still now on the back of Cartwright, looking to go for third, and of course this will be a crucial move for Ben Cooper. And now Thomas Story, after getting that lead out of the pit lane, has had a brilliant gift of a 2-second gap to Harry Phoenix. So that will be interesting to watch. I don't think Phoenix can bring that down. I think it's just that much of a gap now for Thomas Story. It'll take a mistake from him more than anything, but Ben Cooper will be looking to go for a podium indeed. He's fourth currently. He's got a 6th gap to James Cartwright, and then the main question after that is, with a 3-second gap to Harry Phoenix, can he bring that down? Because it's going to be possible, but very, very difficult. As we head our way down towards turn 5. And Cooper now on the attack. Packham up ahead of Carpenter. Carpenter's in the pit lane, so he's making his second stop. And I think Packham, with his newer hard tyres, he should easily get to the end in this race. And Cooper not quite close enough as it stands. Through turn 6 and 7, through the kink of turn 8, and then down towards turn number 9, as we'll see whereabouts the drivers who made their pit stops come out. As Cooper now around the outside to get ahead of James Cartwright. This is a move for the podium spots. He goes a little bit deep. Can Cartwright fight back? I don't think he can. And I think that's third place now for Ben Cooper. Of course, started up in 4th. Had a bit of a mare on the opening couple of laps and dropped down to 9th temporarily. He's had to bring his way back up the field, and now he sits set for a podium place. But of course, that could certainly change if he can bring that gap down to Harry Phoenix and potentially Thomas Story. But that would certainly be a big ask here for Ben Cooper. Of course, if you are joining us for the first time, Ben Cooper took the win earlier this morning around Silverstone. He took it by quite some dominance realistically, as that's going to be Aidan Philpott ahead of Cole Nelson. He jumps up into 9th. And then we head our way back down towards turn 12. Just on board here with Aidan Philpott. Of course, he's got a 3-second time penalty to his name, so even if Cole Nelson goes back ahead, he shouldn't have to worry too much about dropping that 9th place on getting back of penalties. There's Luke Barnhurst there in P6 currently, goes ahead of Adam Hamilton Cooper. I think he's gone into the pit lane. Not quite sure. If we could see how many stops the drivers have done, then we can have a look at who's where provisionally in the standings of this race. It's still Story, Phoenix, Cooper. Philpott and Hamilton Cooper are having a battle for 7th still as they head down towards turn 5. Of course, they've got Cole Nelson with them, so he'll be looking to try and maybe get a move complete. And then further back, I think we saw Edward George Fleming and John Quirk go into the pits. Adam Hamilton Cooper to the outside of Aidan Philpott and gets that move complete into P7 now for Hamilton Cooper, but he goes deep into turn 6. He's going to have to recover it through 7 and then get back on the power down towards turn 9. Of course, Philpott will be there waiting for the take in there with that DRS. He's going to have to try and fight back. To the outside goes Philpott. He's going to have to hang it all the way around. It's a difficult corner to make a move around the outside. Can he get it complete? He certainly can. What a move there from Aidan Philpott. He jumps back up into 7th ahead of Adam Hamilton Cooper, and Cole Nelson up the inside into turn 12. But he's a little bit too far back for now. I think he was just trying to scare Adam Hamilton Cooper more than anything. As we head our way through and towards the final couple of corners, Robert Pryor takes another penalty in this race, so good for him. Here, 3-second time penalty for him. He's keeping on board here with Cole Nelson. He certainly could be looking to challenge Adam Hamilton Cooper, but he goes wide at turn 1, he rejoins. And of course, it's mistakes like that which is what's ramping up his penalties. He's currently on 6 seconds. That would be another warning. So 2 more warnings at maximum, and he will have another penalty on the board, and that would not be ideal to have 9 seconds. It would potentially drop you below Gary Wilson if things stay the way they are currently. It's still the same between, well, the gaps are relatively similar between Story, Phoenix, Cooper and Cartwright. It's 2.6, 2.4 and 2.8, so they're all got over 2 seconds on each other. So for those guys now, just about keeping consistent. I think Phoenix knows he's got too much of a gap to Story, so he's just got to keep himself consistent to not lose out to Ben Cooper, and the same goes for Thomas Story. He is pretty much got a win handed to him on a plate here. He's just got to not make mistakes now in the last 7 laps of this race. We're on lap 22 of 29, and I've got to say this race has absolutely flown by around Abu Dhabi between our drivers, as Cole Nelson now still looking to hunt down Adam Hamilton Cooper as they head on to lap 23-29. Hamilton Cooper again will be looking for an opportunity ahead of Aidan Philpott as they head back down towards turn 1. Hamilton Cooper's closing in. Oh, and a wide again there for Philpott, and that's given Hamilton Cooper a run down towards turn 5. And let's see, will the move be made here? I presume it will be waited until turn 6. So into turn 5 we go. Gaps 5 tenths here on the exit. It's come down to 4, it's come down to 3. This is a big opportunity now for P7 to go the way of Adam Hamilton Cooper. He's going to go to the inside. He should actually be able to pull back to the racing line before they hit the brakes. He does so. 7th place it is now for Hamilton Cooper, 8th for Philpott, and Cole Nelson must have made a mistake because he's completely dropped that DRS now to those guys ahead. As Tommy Dolly makes a move ahead of Morgan Stubbs, and he goes up into P13 here, of course, with 2 penalties to his name. That is not going to help him for the remainder of this one. As of course Hamilton Cooper now has a 1.5 second gap to Luke Barnhurst, as here we go to P2 running Harry Phoenix. We'll see what he can do now. Of course, he's got a 2.8 second gap to Story, so he's not going to bring that down. You've just got to keep consistent. And of course, take home a P2. He took a P2 as well in Silverstone, I believe. It was Cooper, Phoenix, Story. And this time it'll be Story, Phoenix, Cooper. So, same top 3, but in a slightly different order. As of course we've hit, you know, the 3/4 mark of the race, things do start to die down because drivers have kind of got themselves into their comfortable rhythms. They've fixated onto their strategies, and when you've got the top 4 together and they've got very consistent pace, they've got very consistent tyre wear and tyre age, it's not going to be that easy for any of them to bring that gap in unless mistakes happen. So they all aren't going to be pushing at their full strength because they know we might as well keep the spot room rather than risk it and potentially make a mistake and lose out. As here is Hamilton Cooper again on the back of, well, he was on the back of Aidan Philpott last lap, but he's already on the back of Luke Barnhurst. Some brilliant pace here for Adam Hamilton Cooper as Tom Packham takes a penalty, and that was close indeed between Hamilton Cooper going into the back of Luke Barnhurst. But into P6 goes Hamilton Cooper, and if he can bring that gap down by 4 seconds, he's in within 3 of Tom Packham. It could be another top 5 finish potentially on the cards for Adam Hamilton Cooper, as here's Aidan Philpott on the back of Luke Barnhurst, who's gone wide, and through goes Aidan Philpott. That's a move indeed. Brilliant send. He gets that one complete. He made a brilliant move against Adam Hamilton Cooper at turn 9. He's made a brilliant move against Luke Barnhurst at turn 14. As we head our way back down towards turn 1, and this is the main battle here, that mid-pack battle, P7 to P9. Earlier on it was P8 to P10. It's just chopping and changing consistently here between those in the midfield. And I'm starting to notice now the gap there between Cooper and Phoenix is slightly come down. It's 2.1 now, it was 2.5 earlier on. We've got a yellow flag. Somebody's made a mistake somewhere in the field, as Ben Cooper bringing that gap down to, well, momentarily down to below 2 seconds for the first time in this race. And we'll look to continue that on As I'm looking further back, Craig Bridge is looking for a move. We've got Edward George Fleming as Cole Nelson goes ahead now of Luke Barnhurst. He makes that move for 8th place. And of course, I've got to say, some brilliant recovery here by Nelson, because I remember at one point he was a couple of seconds back from these guys. He's now managed to catch up and make a move. So, brilliant work here by him as we look to continue on. Lap 25 and 29. We'll be going on to lap 26 shortly, as somebody's made a mistake somewhere. And I'm not sure if it was Harry Phoenix, because that gap's come down by another 0.4 of a second. His pressure starting to come now to Harry Phoenix with only a few laps to go. My bad, it's lap 25 currently. They'll be going on to lap 26 next time round. So 4 to go in this race. And Cooper has one last opportunity. He's off the track, goes Aidan Philpott, and that brings Cole Nelson back into it again. He's going to bring that gap down once more. And that's what Cole Nelson has kind of managed to capitalise off here. He's not had the most outright pace. He's also not been that slow. He's just been consistent. And of course, other drivers are pushing and making those crucial little errors, and that just allows Cole Nelson to play off it and just bring that gap down ever so slightly again. As we head through the final corner, back down towards turn 1 for Thomas Story. And he's now got 3 laps to go. I mean, he could theoretically lose a second a lap and still finish in P1, and that just shows the gap he's got currently. I've got to say, I'm very surprised Ben Cooper isn't in that second place, because he was absolutely rapid at Silverstone. He was flying. He had very quick pace in the race. He had a very good qualifying lap. But here tonight at Abu Dhabi, well, this afternoon, it's just not been his race. I mean, still P3. That shows how good he is, considering P3 is classed as a good result for him. But you never know. Things can change. P2 could still be on the cards. Here we're on board with Philpott again, still keeping tabs with Adam Hamilton Cooper, who yet again has to only bring that gap down to 3 seconds to Tom Packham, and that could be a P5 in the bags for him. He's got 3 laps to bring it down, so about 7/10 a lap he can do it. It's already down to 4.5, so this could be a brilliant job, brilliant strategy as well by Adam Hamilton Cooper to bring that gap down to 4.5 seconds. It's going to be down to 4.4. He needs to keep bringing this down if he wants to get into the top 5. Of course, it'd be great as well, guys, in the chat, if you can let us know who you're here supporting this afternoon. I kept seeing a few messages in for John, Ben, Adam, James, so make sure to let us know who you're here supporting this afternoon. There's the leaders now that the gap came down, but then it stopped coming down. It's stuck at where it is, 1.7 seconds between Phoenix and Cooper, 2.4 between Story and Phoenix. And of course, we've only really got one big battle, and that is Hamilton Cooper and Philpott. As here's Robert Pryor, Gary Wilson. He's looking to make some moves potentially ahead of Robert Pryor. I mean, he's got that position anyway because of the penalty for Roberts, but anyway, you still would rather get it on track. It feels a lot more, you feel a lot more pride doing that. There's a sort of message as well, Carl saying, what's Mr. Nelson doing with 6 seconds the menace? Indeed, but you know what? I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. This track is horrendous in track limit, so you know we'll give Cole Nelson the benefit of the doubt for this one. But next time he's got no excuses. We'll hold that one for him. We'll hold that one to him indeed. So you head back in towards turn 1. Oh, that's a bit of a slide, and that could be a position gain for Gary Wilson. He's gone wide himself though and lost time. I think he's actually preferring to get DRS over Robert Pryor instead of going ahead and then potentially losing out again. Once Pryor gets that DRS, he got up the inside. Oh dear me, that's a bit of contact, and that's Gary Wilson up into P11. I mean, it's a bit of a boisterous way to make the move, but a move's a move, and he's up into 11. So brilliant job by Gary Wilson there, but Pryor's looking to fight him back, I think, down to turn 6. No, I don't think he's quite close enough, no. That's a move made there for Gary Wilson. There we can see James saying, go on, Gaz. Lots of support for Gary here in the chat, or Gaz for short. He's doing some brilliant defence here ahead of Pryor, who goes back up the inside. He's had to brake early. And Gary Wilson still holds that P11 spot. So Robert Pryor goes wide, rejoins, and well, there we go. Gary Wilson has that P11, I think, rather solidified now, with only a couple of laps to go. And our leaders will be shortly heading on to the final lap, I believe. Here is Ben Cooper. I think that's a lapped car. That could be Edward George Fleming there, unless must be a lapped car. But because of that, he's got DRS, so he could potentially catch up to Harry Phoenix, and we could have a last lap battle for second place. Oh dear me, everything can change just in the split of a second. So there we are, Ben Cooper with the helping of a lapped car's DRS, who's still sticking with him. Potentially could give him some extra power on that final lap of the race. So as we make our way through and towards turn 14 and 15 again for the penultimate time, I think that gap's going to come down. It's 1.013, so close to DRS being enabled for Ben Cooper. But Thomas Story is absolutely checked out. I mean, it's not like he's been bringing the gap higher and higher every lap. He's just been so consistent. Nobody has had a chance. And like we saw him in Silverstone, he qualified P2 on the front row. Then he finished P3 behind Phoenix and behind Cooper. And in Abu Dhabi, he's managed to get himself in the lead by 2.6 seconds. And still, Ben Cooper might have a chance to get ahead of Harry Phoenix. Did he get DRS, though, is the question. I don't think he did, you know. Yeah, he didn't, but he had the gap down below a second, I think. Ooh, as Cooper makes a big mistake in towards turn 6. He goes for a slide, and, well, that's any chance of a P2 over as we head our way back down towards turn 9. But we'll go back to our leader, Thomas Story. It's been a bit of a story, I think, written for him here around Abu Dhabi. Started P2, made a brilliant move, capitalising off a car coming out of the pit lane. And he got himself into the lead there. He extended that gap to over 2 seconds. It's now up to over 3. He's got one final sector to go. And of course, because he's taken the win here, no matter what he's done in the previous races, he will take that championship. So one more corner to go for Thomas Story. Through the final corner he goes, and Thomas Story will be the winner of the Armed Forces Racing League Championship. Harry Phoenix crosses the line in second, and Ben Cooper crosses the line in third place. Those three in a world of their own. But then, of course, we still have many cars to cross the line. We've got James Cartwright, who made that extra pit stop to go for the fastest lap, and I think he did take it, so he'll cross the line in P4 very shortly as we follow him now through that final corner. Brilliant job by James Cartwright. Fourth place for him. Then it'll be Tom Packham in P5. But because Adam Hamilton Cooper has brought that gap down, it'll be him taking that P5 away. So as we head through the final corner, on track it's Packham, but penalties, it goes to Adam Hamilton Cooper. And then we still have Carl Nelson to cross the line. He'll lose out. Oh, no, we won't actually. He'll keep P7. As we do see, Barnhurst going for a last corner move. He does go for the move. He's going to be close to the line. Who gets ahead? It was, I think, Philpott, but it doesn't matter anyway because of his penalties. So it was Barnhurst 8th, Carpenter 9th, and Aidan Philpott reigning off the top 10. Then we had Wilson, Pryor, Dolly. Craig Bridge goes into 13th. Then we'll have John Quirk. And Morgan Stubbs reigns off everybody that has finished this lap. But then, of course, we did see earlier on Bentley, Smith and George Fleming take the checkered flag earlier on. So a brilliant race there. And, I mean, we still had some last corner lunges from Luke Barnhurst looking to go ahead of that P9 car. He couldn't quite get the move done, but he got it because of penalties anyway. And, of course, we can see lots of congratulations in the chat. It was a brilliant race. And as Stacey says, all guys should be proud. Positions don't matter. It's how hard you work to get in there. Indeed. I mean, to start it off, there was, I think, over 150 drivers who were signed up. I had a standing sheet, which was, I think, about 4 pages long. I had to only chop off the top half of it so I could kind of take in all the information. There was a lot of drivers that signed up, and these guys were the ones that got to that final. So a brilliant job, as we can see the podium celebrations, and then we can see it was Story, Cartwright, Philpott and Philpott who took the accolades. These got added on this game. I actually think they're quite a cool addition anyway. But no, we look at the race classification. So Thomas Story takes the championship ahead of Harry Phoenix and Ben Cooper. Then we had James Cartwright and Adam Hamilton Cooper the top 5. Tom Packham, Carl Nelson, Luke Barnhurst, Oliver Carpenter and Aidan Philpott the top 10. Then we have Gary Wilson, Robert Pryor, Craig Bridge, Tommy Dolly, John Quirk, Morgan Stubbs, Michael Bentley, James Smith and Edward George Fleming, the full 19 on this grid. And of course we now come to the time where we end off the stream. Of course, it's been a brilliant event. Of course, it's been in the running for months. It started at the start of September with our time trials, and of course it all led to the finale here at the Williams Esports Lounge, where we had Silverstone and Abu Dhabi. It's been a pleasure to be in the commentary box, and hopefully I'll be back in the future if we ever come back here for this series. Of course, a big thank you to the team that fund this, which is the Armed Forces Covenant Fund Trust. A big thank you to you guys, because without them we probably wouldn't be here today. So big thanks to those for helping get this series up and running, and of course a big thank you to everybody that's taken part. This was a superb event. Everybody seemed to have fun. We had lots of support in the chat by family members and friends and other colleagues. And of course, if you are a reservist, if you're serving personnel or a veteran in the Armed Forces, you can head over to the the Company of Makers website, and you can get yourself signed up for the different gaming leagues they have. They have multiple different games that they take part in. F1 was just one of the games that they had on this afternoon. So once again, a big thank you to the Company of Makers, to the Covenant Trust, and also to the Atlassian Williams F1 team, who also was in partnership for this event. I've been Nathan Richards. You've been an amazing audience. Have a good evening, and we'll see you next time. Good night.